But when we spoke of an African Renaissance, we were informed both by our history as Africans and the aspirations of the millions of our people throughout the continent. And I'm speaking here particularly of our history during the post-colonial years. And in many instances, this was a sad history, characterized by many negatives. And some of them were the many and persistent violent conflicts, the denial of democratic and human rights, sustained poverty, and all-round development, social exclusion on the basis of gender and other divides, continuing loss of dignity, and the seemingly entrenched global marginalization of Africa, including the matter about the digital divide. Thus it was that, having endured this experience for many decades, the African people made the determination that this had to end. And they shared the aspiration towards the birth of a new Africa, towards an African Renaissance. And I'm certain that you know that this found concrete expression, for instance, in NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, which was adopted as a continental development program in 2001. And specifically, that program focused on, and continues to focus, on such important matters for the renaissance of Africa as peace, security, democracy, political and economic governance, infrastructure development in all sectors, including what was described in its base document as bridging the digital divide, investing in information and communication technologies, human resource development, economic development, environment, culture, science and technology, and so on. Africa has worked continuously since this development program was adopted to ensure its implementation. And indeed, as was confirmed 2 years ago by the African heads of state and government, they committed themselves formally to the pursuit of that African Renaissance. As I've indicated, even as we adopted the programs, this program to give expression to the commitment to the Renaissance, we were conscious of the critical importance of the need to utilize modern information and communication technologies to achieve our development objectives. However, the reality was that certainly in our case as a South African government, we felt that we did not know enough about these technologies fully to be able to exploit their possibilities. And for this reason, we established a domestic consultation group and an international advisory council on information society and development, as it was called. As I was preparing my remarks for this evening, I looked at comments made in 2004 by our then Minister, South African Minister of Communications, at the meeting of the Advisory Council. Among others, she said that guided by advice given by the Council in 2002, the following year the government had produced an e-education draft white paper, which among others set out a framework for utilizing ICTs to improve the delivery and quality of education provided to South Africans. And similarly, she spoke about a NEPAD e-schools program, which included provision of computers, training, and ensuring connectivity among schools, starting with a number of selected African countries. She reported on work done by the Ministry of Health to improve the delivery of health care. And in this context, I must mention that actual work was also started to provide telemedicine to help our rural clinics to access the expertise in our referral hospitals. It was intended that this would be extended to sister African countries in our neighborhood. She also mentioned a small business development strategy prepared by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, including a pilot project using ICTs to support fresh fruit and vegetable street vendors in Johannesburg. And similarly, she referred to work that was being done in the area of e-government to improve the delivery of various services to the population. As you can see, the government's interactions with the domestic and international advisors were in good measure focused on the application of the ICTs, the use of these technologies as an enabler to achieve various outcomes. And reflecting the challenges at the time, she also reported on discussions that had been held with the Advisory Council concerning such matters as lowering the cost of telecommunications and ensuring that the country's legislative framework facilitates the availability of and access to ICTs. And interestingly, the minister also compared South Africa, India, and Brazil, relating to the use of mobile as opposed to fixed line telephones and internet connectivity. And it's clear that in this regard, the minister and perhaps the meeting as a whole viewed mobile telephones only in the context of voice communication. But as you will have seen, having gained greater understanding of the capabilities of the ICTs, we sought to apply this knowledge to tackle exactly some of the tasks identified in NAPAD as essential to the pursuit of the African Renaissance. And as you will recall, these included health, issues of health, human resource development, of business, governance, and so on. It's commonly acknowledged, as has just been indicated, that the use of mobile telephones throughout Africa has increased quite significantly since the days 15 years ago when we sought to educate ourselves about modern ICTs. It therefore stands to reason that mobile technology will have had and is having that much greater an impact on exactly the issues I mentioned earlier as having been identified as essential to advance towards the accomplishment of the Renaissance of Africa. In any case, it has become quite clear that modern ICTs constituted what I might call poor people's technology. Many years ago, I witnessed how medical personnel in a rural clinic in South Africa were using their mobile telephones to link up with one of our major public hospitals to get the necessary and urgent assistance. Having received a written report and pictures relating to a patient, the hospital will then communicate to the clinic the correct and speedy clinical diagnosis and directions about how to treat the patient. And here we had a very direct benefit of the uses of mobile technology in a situation in which a rural district, rural clinic, and the hospital were connected by bad gravel roads. In addition, there were not enough ambulances to cover the large rural district concerned and therefore to move the patients. And bear in mind that I'm talking here about South Africa. And you'll therefore understand how the backwardness of the transport infrastructure and the weaknesses of the health infrastructure, including through the shortage of ambulances throughout Africa, impacts negatively on the achievement of the Renaissance objective of health for all. But I know as a matter of fact that Senegal has been working for some years to install the infrastructure and establish the ways and means to provide telemedicine as widely as possible throughout the country. And I'm certain that there are examples of a similar kind relating to other African countries. And as all of us know, all African countries face serious problems of weak infrastructure of various kinds, major challenges of shortages of personnel with various skills, insufficient resources to provide various services, and population dispersal across big geographic distances. And mobile technology has intervened as a powerful and important enabler to help us to respond to these challenges in a cost-effective manner. There are, of course, many documented examples we can give in this regard relating to the use of mobile technology to address a variety of activities, including providing financial services to the poor, who were previously treated as the unbankable, helping small farmers correctly and timelessly to respond to such challenges as the weather conditions, market conditions affecting their produce, helping the development of other small and micro businesses, including the speedy capturing of socioeconomic data, for instance, about levels of morbidity, and mortality, which enables speedy interventions to attend to any abnormal developments in this regard, and improving access to education, including through establishing twinning arrangements between poorly resourced African schools and even those in the developed countries. Without seeking in any way to overemphasize the use of mobile technology and the social media in terms of assessing and responding to the public temperature among the people, as happened during the 2011 popular uprisings in Libya and in Tunisia and Egypt, I agree that mobile technology will play an increasingly important role in terms of improving the engagement of the masses of the people in terms of the governance of our continent. But before I say anything about the future, I must also mention the very positive development on our continent, which is contrary to some of what I said at the very beginning of my comments. And I refer here to the sustained higher rates of economic growth that our continent has experienced for some years now. And among others, this has resulted in the relatively rapid growth of disposable income in Africa and the expansion of what has been characterized as a middle class. And I believe that the combination of the positive growth of the African economy since the early 1990s, the greater availability of disposable income, much of it in the hands of that middle class, and the more extensive availability of mobile telephones creates a possibility for an even more effective impact of mobile technology in addressing the challenge to achieve faster progress towards realizing the goals of the African Renaissance. With regard to this future, recently I read an interesting article in one of the South African newspapers entitled "Africa Must Lead Next Technology Innovation," written by Walter Bates and Sifiso Dabengo. And they make the important point that the next wave of technology development will no doubt be about building a communications network or computing industry, but building on these to create whole new industries and sectors. And they say the innovators of the future will be shaping value-adding services which use these resources to truly transform lives and experiences. And they go on to say that social inclusion and economic equity must be the watchwords for the next wave of technology innovation on this continent. Whether it is financial inclusion or access to education, impact on the end user, the people and the communities who benefit from these services must be top of the mind. And they advise that technology companies like Ericsson, they didn't mention Ericsson, but like Ericsson, should elaborate business models that ensure effective technology solutions, that those effective technology solutions reach markets at the bottom of the pyramid. And to achieve all of this, they also propose the nurturing of young people who both understand technology and are business-minded enough to produce the necessary value-adding services or products. I'd like to believe that Walter Bates and Sifiso Dabengo are correct, and therefore that multinationals like Ericsson and others will again work with our African governments, with young entrepreneurs, with technical experts, with research institutions such as Ericsson has, indeed to lead the next technology innovation, resulting, as they say, in actually shifting the fortunes of the African continent. Thus would we give further impetus towards the realization of the noble dream of the Renaissance of Africa. And I thank you very much.